seated. So today we hear some really interesting imagery in the gospel. It is the very beginning of Jesus' ministry according to the Gospel of John. He's in the business of calling together his initial disciples, and this is one of those events. In this one, we meet Philip and Nathaniel. Philip we'll hear more about later. Nathaniel sort of disappears into the ethers of history. The imagery, the story sets out that these interactions are just initially taking place. Jesus and these guys are starting to get to know each other. Philip has decided that he wants to follow Jesus, and he goes and gets Nathaniel. Now, if you read the text really carefully, Jesus doesn't claim any miraculous action. Perhaps he had actually walked by and seen Nathaniel under the fig tree. And then Nathaniel didn't see him, though. And the second thing is, you have to kind of think that Jesus was pretty intuitive. All through the scriptures, he sizes up people pretty quickly and figures out what their agenda is, or what their need, or their ask, or whatever their position is in things. He figures it out really quickly. That's an intuitive thinker. And so put those two things together. He saw him under the fig tree, and he looks him up and down and just says, this looks like an honest man. That's all this says there. But so Nathaniel goes ape over this. I mean, he's just, calls him Son of God and King of Israel. That's pretty high praise for, and Jesus laughs. I'm sorry the Gospels don't have the little square brackets that says laugh. You're getting all excited because I saw you under a fig tree? Come on. There's bigger things happening here. Matter of fact, you're going to see, before it's all said and done, angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. I just looked this up to make sure I had it correctly. This exact language of angels ascending and descending is Jacob's ladder. 28th chapter of Genesis, starting around verse 11, 12. The story of the dream that Jacob has, in which he sees angels ascending and descending. Now the thing is that in that dream he is then given again the terms of the covenant that was first given to his grandfather Abraham. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, remember? And it was a threefold promise. It was a promise to expand your descendants like the sands of the sea. The second one was, I'm going to give you a land for those descendants to live in. And the third one, the one that most people forget, is you will be a blessing to the world. That was the Abrahamic covenant. That's what God said to Abraham when he called him. And so now he reaffirms to Jacob this exact same covenant. But in it, what we see is this imagery of angels ascending and descending. And so I gave some thought to that, and I started realizing that it seems to be almost a human intuition, that there's something higher than us. There's something up above. The number of religions that use a pole, a pyramid, a totem pole, a pillar of stones, all kinds of things, but all of them in the end reflecting this yearning or longing for something greater than us to make our lives better. Now that's reducing religion down to a pretty small little package there. But if we see this image as being from our tradition, the image of the connection between heaven and earth. And in our modern day, many skeptics say the laws of nature are fixed. There's no place for God to act in the created world. And it's a legitimate question to believers to think clearly in relationship to the knowledge of our time. Where is there space for God to act in a material world in which, if God created it, He created it with order and law? Laws of physics and so forth. We don't know them all yet. We haven't sorted it all out at all levels. But it's ordered. So does God interfere in the order? Or does God connect? How is it that God and humans can make any contact with one another? If there is a God, isn't that God so far away and in some ways so impotent in our world that it's not worth the bother? That's what many people decide, sort of something like that. These stories reflect the experience of people finding those spots where the connection is made. Now, you may, in fact, in your own life, be able to think of places, spots, churches, sanctuaries, camps, places in nature. It could be endless. A symphony concert where you just felt like heaven and earth were just like this. Had that sense that all is right, a sense of an excited, alert awareness of life, kind of infused with some joy. I hope all of you've had it. You're sort of just looking at me like lumps. I mean, have anybody ever had an experience like that? Well, think about it and see if it doesn't energize you a little bit when you do. Where are those places where people can make some kind of authentic connection between the things of eternity and our own mortality? Between the order of the universe that's way beyond anything I can even understand, and certainly beyond our control, except in limited ways. Where do I connect with the eternal in my mortality and in my morality? That is the claim of the Christian church, that we get a pretty big clue in Jesus Christ. When we pay attention to, in some very careful ways, what he said, how he said them, who he said them to, what was the context in which he said them. If we really look at who Jesus was, he should make all of us squirm. And he should give all of us a sense of comfort. All at the same time. It's kind of a paradox. It's sort of balancing guilt and excitement. But we see Jesus then connecting himself in this statement. This is where I want to bring this back around. When Jesus says that, you think me seeing you under a fig tree is a big deal. you're going to see heaven and earth connect if you stick with me. So we find this opportunity in this gospel to see the Epiphany season, the season of showings, revelations. It's a good time for dreams, but in particular, we're going to have a sort of a short Epiphany season because Lent comes quickly on us this year. But it's the season in which we hear stories of Jesus in which he is revealed in his character and in his mission and in his ministry. And so we'll have a few Sundays of those kinds of stories. And in each one, we find that what Jesus is doing is connecting people in real situations with what he calls the coming kingdom of God. That is, the angels are going to start ascending and descending on this place and this time. The connection is going to get close. The Irish say it's going to be a thin spot where there's just not much between here and there. Now, this is a faith statement. Back to our scientists, we know that more than half of the mass in the universe that makes our common astronomical physics work is called dark matter, which they can neither describe nor find. So even scientists are living on faith that there's something dark matter out there that will make all their equations come out right. If it doesn't exist, then their equations are all false. So even scientists have to work on faith that they're eventually going to find the truth. So that's where we, as thoughtful, theologically thinking people, can connect with science. Is we too know there's a lot of dark matter in terms of our knowledge of God. The knowledge is too wonderful for me, says the psalmist. You know me as so intimately that you know when I was knit together in my mother's womb, but I can only know you in the most crude kind of way because you are so wonderful. Jesus connects us with wonderful. Jesus connects us with creation and the Creator. Jesus is the ladder that Jacob dreamed of, that allows us that access. I said last night, I always think of this when I think of it. I think of the escalator in J.C. Penney's and all these angels sitting on the escalator going up and down. But that may be too modern for Jacob, but it always tickled me that somehow that came to me. But it's that connected. And when I was a little kid, escalators were quite wonderful and wondrous. So as you enter your Epiphany season, as we join together, as we even look at this verticality here, what does this building represent other than a reaching up, the longing of our human hearts to reach our Creator? Somehow, instinctively, we think up. And here's our pole, our totem, our physical representation of one of those places where God meets his people.